My mother is a very artistic person. She dedicated her life to art. She was a rather eccentric painter. She had the idea of having 4 children and naming us in order to spell out love with our first initials. She passed unexpectedly last year, leaving me and my 2 siblings. She never got to complete the word love. When I was younger, I asked her, what happens if you get too old and can't have a baby anymore, or something along those lines, and she told me that one of us could have a baby and finish it for her. She said it wouldn't be the same, but the tribute would make me happy. My parents had marital problems up till her death because of my father's infidelity. I think she put off having the 4th child for quite some time because of it. However, she always said baby Elise or Emilio would be completing our family soon. I was around 6 to 7 months pregnant when my father and his wife and former mistress announced their pregnancy. She said she would finally bring little Emilio into our family. My sister and I were horrified and spoke to my dad privately that while mom did want someone to continue on the acronym idea, we found it disrespectful to do it with the woman he was cheating on her with. I told him about how she said she wanted one of us to carry on the name when I was a child. He shut me down saying that she probably expected her and me to still be together, and that it'll be better with all you guys in the same generation of the family, and left it at that. My brother agreed. 2 weeks before I gave birth, they found out that they were not having a boy as they had hoped, but a girl. I realized I could take the name Elise before they would have a chance to name their baby my mother's chosen name. They could name her Emily or something else, but it wouldn't be the name my mother chose, and that's what mattered to me, so I did. My father and especially my stepmother are furious at me for ruining my mother's lasting wishes and tarnishing her idea. While my sister agrees with me, she won't say it to my dad since the birth. My aunt and other families on my dad's calling me names from petty and troublemaking to just outright a witch. I didn't expect so much backlash, and it's really stressing me out with just giving birth, and they're taunting me by posting pictures of their ultrasounds with captions like the e-baby is coming and 3 is the crowd but 4 is love. It's driving me crazy, and it feels like this rift in the family is all for nothing since they're going to claim their baby is the real e-baby anyways. I forgot to add this in. My stepmom approached me and asked me for permission and politely asked me to change my mind about the baby's name once she caught wind that I was already planning on naming the baby Elise. This is part of why I think I could be the idiot. I never actually officially announced the name first. I felt like it would be more special naming the baby when they arrived, not before. Not the idiot. So weird your dad thinks it's even remotely appropriate to name a child of his mistress to honor his late wife. Tell stepmom to pick in our name and honor her own relationship. LOVER because she's the other lover. Burn. Her next kid could be Cecilia, Ursula, Natalie, Tina. I can't understand how the stepmom is going along with it. If I was in that situation and my husband told me he wanted us to name our child after the legacy of his late wife, I'd be a bit shocked even without any cheating. At this point, I would lean into the pettiness since you're already being called out for it and put him and his mistress on blast for the world to see. To take the idea my mother came up with that she wanted her children to carry out, I mean, aren't you tired? You lack such originality. You have to steal from a dead woman. Wasn't sleeping with her husband enough for you? I mean, I can't wait to tell my new half-sibling the origin of her name and about the deceased woman who started the tradition and the mistress who slept with the woman's husband and still wasn't satisfied. That'll burn like napalm. It might burn a bridge as well, though, if that matters at this point. The baby won't be a sibling you grew up with in addition to having no connection to your mother. Your father's trying to use your mother's dream to force you to have a bond with your half-sibling. That likely won't happen because you'll be too focused on raising your own child. Don't let him foist your step-sibling on you to babysit under some guise of developing sibling bonds. Honey, your baby is the real e-baby and always will be. You know that. Your sister knows that, and I bet your mom knows that. So, 22 female, and the eldest of six siblings, 19, teen, young teen, and tween twins. The 19-year-old is at uni in another city some distance away. My parents unexpectedly need to go visit relatives abroad and have asked if I could look after the kids for a week. This is generally fine, except for one day I'm attending a course in another city. I have to leave my parents' house at around 6:40 a.m. and won't return until 7 or 8 p.m. Luckily, my boyfriend, who I live with, is off that day and is happy to help. When I told my mother this, she was incredibly appreciative and I thought nothing more about it. Well, fast forward to today, 2 days before they leave, and my mom asked if my boyfriend's okay with getting up so early to get out of here. We live in the city. Parents are out in the suburbs about an hour by bus. I tell her that that's okay. He'll just come through the night before. To say my mother freaked out is an understatement. Mom, and where exactly will he be sleeping? Me, on the pullout with me. Mom, absolutely not. Not under my roof. Now to be clear, when my boyfriend and I first started dating, on the couple of occasions we did visit my parents together, we did sleep in separate rooms. However, my parents always said that that was just because they didn't know him. And earlier this year, before we were living together, my entire family rented an Airbnb for a wedding and there were zero issues about my boyfriend sharing with me. Not only was it not a big deal, but my mom specifically made the room arrangements and put us together without any discussions from me. So, I was pretty blindsided by this reaction today. I checked the timetable and he'd need to get the bus just after 5 a.m. to guarantee he'd be there before I had to leave. And presumably, my mother was also expecting him to leave once I returned that night, meaning he'd potentially be getting home around 10 p.m. That's a ridiculously long day and far too big an expectation for someone who's doing you a favor. I advised my mom as such and reminded her about the Airbnb and the fact that we already lived together, and she reiterated that there would be none of that under my roof. For the record, the couches in the living room, which has no closable doors, just open archways to the hallway in the dining room. As such, there is zero chance that we'll be doing anything scandalous over those 2 nights. I told her this, but she still maintained that it's her house, so her rules. I told her that I felt my terms were more than fair and that if she didn't like them, then she should find someone else for the week and hung up. She's been texting, calling me selfish, and saying how this means she'll need to stay behind and she hopes I'm proud of myself. I made it clear that it really doesn't mean that. There's a pretty easy fix here. Edit. The pullout is my parents' bed. It's in a little recess in the corner. They downsized last year. It's a 2-bedroom, and the other rooms are already crowded with my siblings, and we'd have to sleep on the floor, which I'm also unwilling to do. Not the idiot. My house, my rules isn't a get-out-of-jail-free card for being an idiot. Mom, in this instance, is being an idiot with her idiot rule. Doubly so in light of Opie being an adult and doing her a favor. It's even more ridiculous when you consider Opie and boyfriend living together. Mom can clutch her pearls to her heart's desire while she looks after her own kids. Mom is free to have rules. However, this is absurd. You're doing them a favor, a pretty big one, in asking your boyfriend to get on a bus at 5 a.m. to look after your siblings is a tall ask. He'll be knackered. It's better for everyone that he gets to stay the night. I also don't quite get your mom's logic. Read the Airbnb. She'll not allow you to share a bed under her own roof, but will happily pay for you to share one so you can attend a wedding. If she's that determined to force 2 adults to sleep separately, she can likely hire 1 adult for the week. Stop visiting until your mom respects your relationship. You were right to set that boundary with her. I, female 31, have a sister, 25, and we were super close growing up because our parents weren't very active in our lives and put their marriage above us. So, it was just the two of us. At a young age, I had to pick up being her third parent, and it made me resent her for years because she could seemingly have a normal childhood and I didn't. I did get over it though. When I graduated from college, I left my home state and moved to Arizona with my husband, 35. My sister and I barely talked after that because I was busy with my career and marriage. Now, I have a young daughter and I'm currently pregnant with twins. On Wednesday, I received a long text message from my sister, and she told me she was getting married and wanted me to walk her down the aisle. I was happy for her until she told me her wedding date. Her wedding is 10 days after my due date. I have no interest in traveling that soon after I give birth, and I definitely have no interest in leaving my husband with 3 kids. I want to get used to being a family of 5 together, just like how we got used to being a family of 3 together. So, I told my sister that I couldn't attend because I would only be a week or two postpartum and I didn't feel like flying across the country that soon. She tried asking if my husband would watch the kids, but I told her that I'm not leaving my kids that are that young across the country and they're too young to fly on a plane. She got angry with me and told me that she wanted to catch up with me and hadn't seen me in years. So, I replied that we would need to catch up on another day. She ended up hanging up the phone, and now since our conversation, I've been getting emails from her bridesmaids that I intentionally was trying to hurt my sister. I feel like I'm doing the right thing by putting my family and myself above a wedding. So, am I the idiot? Not the idiot. You really didn't have a choice. You physically won't be able to travel. Surely, you understand her request is ludicrous given the circumstances. Resenting her because your parents were bad parents is irrelevant. You literally can't go. You'll be physically recovering from birth and adjusting to life with brand new twins. This seems too cruel to be true. 10 days after birth to leave newborn babies alone is one issue. You, having given birth to twins, be asked to travel 10 days after on a plane multiple hours is another. Your sister still insisting you can do it is unreal. She would have known you were expecting if she'd been active in your life. If you were so important to her to be in the wedding, she would have checked before setting the date. Block the witchy bridesmaids and ignore them. And there's no guarantee on the due date. It's an estimate. Opie might give birth mere days before the wedding or might have a C-section that takes a minimum of 4 to 6 weeks to heal from before anything strenuous. And travel is strenuous. It's an absurd expectation. Opie best wishes to you and the twins. I, nearly adult, non-binary, live 50 to 50 with my mom and my dad and stepmom. I recently asked my stepmom to drive me to the drugstore to buy hair dye. I don't have a license. She said yes. And when we got there, I picked out some silver hair dye. She got a sour look on her face and tried to convince me to go with any other color, but I said no because I wanted silver. I asked her why she was so insistent, and she said that silver hair was making fun of older people. She's in her late 40s and has a fair amount of natural gray hair. She said that if I dye my hair silver, she'd take my phone until I dyed it a different color. I told her she couldn't do that because my mom paid for my phone, not her or my dad. She said it doesn't matter because she's my parent and can discipline me however she wants. I said fine, and we left without buying any hair dye. Well, a few days later, I went to my mom's house, and she helped me dye my hair silver anyway. She didn't say anything about it being offensive, and even said it looked great. The other day, I returned to my dad's house with my silver hair, and my stepmom freaked out. She did try to take my phone, but my dad stopped her because, surprise, surprise, my mom pays for it, and she can't just take it without talking to my mom. She huffed and called me a disrespectful, spoiled brat, her exact words, because I ran to my mom to avoid the rules. My dad later asked me in private to dye my hair a different color to keep the peace, and he even said he'd pay for the dye if I just would let my stepmom think she won. I said no and threatened to stay with my mom full time if she tried to punish me for my hair. My dad called me stubborn. They're both being cold to me now, and I'm wondering if I'm really being entitled. Am I the idiot? Not the idiot. Stick to your guns. They can make the rules about their house, but not about your body or what you choose to do with it. Sounds like the stepmom is projecting her insecurities about getting older onto you, and dad just wants to keep getting laid. Yep, she's obviously sour grapes about getting older. I vote to stay with your mom full time. Stepmom is on a power trip, and your dad is enabling her. This will keep happening until you leave. Just so you know, my mom, who's 69 and whose hair is 100% naturally light gray, loves this young people dyeing their hair silver trend. It makes her feel proud of her own hair. My 29, best friend 29, is getting married this fall. I'm the best man. We have a bachelor party in Vegas. His fiancée, a bit of a control freak, has badgered me a few times about what we've planned for the trip. To be honest, I don't have many concrete plans in place yet, and I've told her this. After maybe the fourth time she asked, I told her I didn't know the plans yet, and I wouldn't be telling her anyway. She got all huffy and puffy about it, and I basically told her to screw off, and that my job is to throw a fun party for my friend, not to get it approved by her. My friend tells me I should apologize, even though he agrees with me, because it'll stop her from nagging him. I don't want her to keep annoying him, but I also don't want her to think she has a right to do what she's doing. We have other married friends, and none of them said their wives did anything like this. Edit. I'd advise him not to hook up at the club, but if someone else wants it, I won't stop it. I'd 100% keep it a secret. Why would I say something? The plan is to relax and have fun. We don't need a full day of plans done ahead of time. We're just gonna wing most of it. If all he means is apologize for telling her to screw off, then I agree. You could have declined her request in all the ways you described, without going at her like that. This is your friend's fiancé, and your priority in his life will change. You want to be an idiot here, because you're right, but you're going down the wrong path if this is your best friend. Everybody sucks here. She's not asking for a second-by-second itinerary. She wants a general outline of where her fiancé will be while he's away and what y'all are planning. And there isn't even a reason to believe that she'd object to any of it. She just wants to be aware. Are you required to tell her? Nope. But you're literally part of this woman's wedding party, holding a meaningful place in her wedding. And not only do you clearly hate her, but you're also deliberately antagonizing her, swearing at her, and your examples of why she's so awful just aren't. If they ran into their partner's old friends at a bar, most people would expect to be introduced. It takes half a second, and it's rude not to. For someone who's almost 30, you sound about 16, belligerent, and exhausting. But of course, you're the idiot. I agree. Why don't you have a little empathy for her, even if she's being a bit extra, and just give her a sense of the kind of things you're thinking about doing? This is the woman your friend has chosen to spend the rest of his life with. You need to have respect for her. God forbid she wants to know where you guys will be in case of an emergency. You could have just eased her anxiety, but instead, you're rude as crap to the woman your supposed best friend is marrying. You're the best man. Act like it. I, a nearly adult male, had not spoken to my father in a little over a year until he called to tell me his wife was pregnant and high risk, and he wanted me to help him look after her. My reason for not speaking to my father is he had an affair with his wife while he was married to my mom. They worked together. She was his boss technically, and when they got found out, they were fired. She was his supervisor, and it was against the rules to be involved with someone you're in a position of power over, but they also did stuff at work, which was also against the rules. They tried to blame mom and attempted to disparage her to me and others because they were angry mom was so angry at them. My father's wife said she had done nothing wrong and didn't like the hostility aimed at her when she was an innocent party. I was a younger teen when all this went down. He brought this woman into our home, expected us to be kind to her, and accept that they wanted to be happy together. He expected me to be more welcoming than I was. I told him to go screw himself and that I didn't want to be around either of them, and they were disgusting. My father had every other weekend custody of me through the divorce proceedings, but Mom and I fought and won the ability for me to decide if I wanted to go to his place or not. Once that was in my hands, I stopped all contact with him and refused to step inside his house. So he called me to tell me about his wife's pregnancy and how it's high risk. I didn't answer, but he left a voicemail. He called me back a few times until I answered. He said she's unable to work and she's home alone a lot while he works. She can't do much for herself, and he wanted me to care for her and their house. I was like, no way I'm taking care of his wife. He said if I don't want to do it for them, think of the baby who'll be my little brother. And he was like, surely you'll want a relationship with him. I said, nope, I won't ever see his new kid, and I won't be his kid's big brother. My father was saying that's not how you treat family. I told him he ceased to be my family when he decided to try and turn me against Mom and brought his side piece into the family home. I told him Mom had done nothing wrong. He cheated, and there he was trying to poison me against her. My father argued that it had nothing to do with me. I pointed out he made it something to do with me when he tried to use me. He protested some more and said he needed help. I said he could take care of his wife, and when it came to that, he could take care of his family and leave me alone. He lectured me about people needing help occasionally, and I'm being a little idiot about this. He said she could lose the baby if forced to do too much. I told him that wasn't my problem. Am I the idiot for telling my estranged father he can take care of his own wife? Not the idiot. Your father sounds like a narcissist. Stay away. Otherwise, he'll make your life a nightmare. He created this situation and could hire someone to care for his wife. He's also putting you in a bad position. If something bad happens to his wife, it could be anything out of your control. He will blame you and try to put that burden on you. You're not even an adult yet and should be going out and living your life. The part that gets me is his new wife saying she did nothing wrong. She had an affair with a married man, and that marriage broke up. And if she didn't do anything wrong, where are all her friends? Why aren't they rallying around her? Just what is doing something wrong, in her opinion? They're both narcissists. This is what makes little sense. Their first resort is Opie. They must have lost many friends and family members over this, if they're this desperate. Opie, you can work to forgive him for yourself, but that doesn't mean you have to have a relationship. Something I've learned is that not everyone deserves to be forgiven. Losing employment from a work affair with your boss is a foreseeable outcome. Alienating your kid by trying to bring your affair partner home is a very foreseeable outcome. Having a high-risk pregnancy over 40 is a very foreseeable outcome. Opie, I don't know what kind of shrooms your father is smoking, but it's better to stay away, far away from him. Your dad makes decisions without considering dealing with the consequences of his actions. You aren't responsible for trying to take care of him in that. He will learn, or not, on his own time. I, female, 26, have 3 older siblings. This is about my oldest sister, Abby, 37. Abby has a son, kindergartner, and I have a daughter, toddler. Abby dealt with years of fertility issues and had probably 10 plus losses. Then she had her son, of course. He was Abby's miracle rainbow baby. We were so happy for her. But then it leads to Abby spoiling her son and letting him get away with everything because he's a miracle and he's special. Because of that, everyone has always bit their tongue when it comes to her son. On Saturday, I had my daughter's birthday party. It was mostly family, and a few of my close friends were invited. I invited Abby and her son, because everyone else in our family was invited. So, I felt bad excluding her. We had different activities for the kids to do. Abby's son didn't like any of them. He was upset none of the presents were for him. He didn't want to eat any of the food we had. He then decided to try to push the cake off the table because he was mad the cake wasn't his. I got super upset at Abby for allowing her son to act that way. She went on to say her son is special. I said her son is only special to her, which is understandable. But to everyone else, he's a spoiled brat, which shouldn't be overlooked because he was your special miracle baby. Abby called me a witch and left crying. A few family members have since called me an idiot because I've never dealt with a miscarriage. So, I don't understand how painful it was for Abby to deal with years of that before her son. It's not like I don't realize her son is special to her, but it doesn't give the excuse for Abby to allow him to act like a spoiled brat. Not the idiot, and you're 100% correct. While he is her miracle baby, no one else in the world will coddle him except her. And she's raising him to be a spoiled, entitled brat, which will only bring him issues later in life. He needs manners and discipline, and your sister needs a wake-up call. He didn't mean to steal, assault someone, whatever stupid thing he did, because he thinks he can get away with it. She should realize this now than when he's older and there are real-life consequences to his actions. How much hate do you have for your kids that you refuse to teach them the basic skills of living in a society? Tell the flying monkeys that your sister is harming her child by not preparing him for living with others in the same society. The kid will go to school soon, and it'll be hard for the kid if mom doesn't get her head out of her butt. I don't know why people cannot say, everyone's the idiot here, in situations where it's obvious that everyone's the idiot here. Your sister's son acted inappropriately, and apparently she didn't stop him, which sucks. But telling her that her son is a spoiled brat is uncalled for. In addition to that, it's not helpful. If you can tell someone lovingly that what they're doing is wrong, then maybe they'll listen to you. But if you go on the offensive, it puts them on the defensive, and nothing is accomplished. Rather than trying to view this through the lenses of an adult, parent, aunt, etc., you're calling your nephew names. There's likely more to the story than you're sharing. I, 49 male, am getting married to my fiancé, 41 female, in a month, and the wedding preparations have gone well, except for one issue. My fiancé's family is primarily conservative and thus unsupportive of same-gender relationships. My fiancé's siblings plan to bring their children to our wedding. They obviously wouldn't want their kids to witness a gay couple at our wedding. Then they'd need to explain the situation to them. So we decided to disinvite my son's 21 partner and his 20s male from our wedding to avoid such issues. I thought my son would be mature about it and understand our side. But instead, he kicked up a huge fuss about it, saying that I'm an idiot and embarrassed by him, and that if his boyfriend can't attend the wedding, then he won't either. He's being really unreasonable, especially because he and his boyfriend haven't even been together for that long. So it's not like he's really entitled to be invited to any family events yet. And my fiancé does take my side. However, my son is vehement that I'm an idiot and even got his mom, my ex-wife, to essentially gang up on me about this issue. Am I the idiot? Edit. My fiancé and I don't plan to hide it, per se, but it doesn't mean it needs to be thrown into their faces either. You are the idiot. You made a major mistake and uninvited the wrong people. The bigot should be told not to come, not your son's partner. If your fiancé is defending her family's bigotry over your son's existence, then the one person you should have uninvited was her. You've essentially told him that you're ashamed of his perfectly normal lifestyle. I hope you're ready to be iced out of his life if you continue down this path. Oh, they're conservative? No, sweetie, they're toxic idiots. And by you thinking it's acceptable to cater to that crap makes you a toxic idiot as well. You've just shown your son where your loyalties lie, with your coward fiancée and her awful family, instead of your own child. Don't be surprised when you're not invited to his wedding someday. He's correct. He's not the immature one here. That would be you. Forget the wedding. What about the rest of your life? Who marries someone who thinks his child is a deviant monster? who invites a room full of people to say anything if they think your child is evil. It's not just the wedding. The poor kid's dad straight up chose a family of ignorant bigots over his own child. It never ends. It's never about alienating a person for a single event. It's about alienating them for the remainder of your combined lives. Sorry, son, you can't come to Christmas this year because I have to choose my nieces and nephews from my second wife's family over you, because you have the big gay. I don't know how to explain to my bigot in-laws that love is love. Your son would be a fool to ever speak to you again. OP hope your marriage works out, because it's all you'll have in your life. I, 26, female, live in England. I own my home and understand that I'm fortunate, but I also worked hard for it. Any money I received or earned while working part-time till graduation went into my savings account. Most people on my street are social housing tenants. I'm still determining what that is, but they've explained that you're eligible for the scheme if you're on a low income. It's more secure than the private sector, as you mostly get assured tenancies, even though there are different tenancy types. For a while, I got on well with my next-door neighbors, Emily and Ben. They also have 3 kids, a young male teen, a female tween, and a female preschooler. But soon I started experiencing a lot of problems from next door. I work from home often, and I could hear shouting next door, constantly. Ben is 5 feet 11 inches, 145 kilograms, and quite loud and intimidating, and I could hear their kids screaming and crying. I had to ask them to lower their voices daily, and I even explained that I work from home. The next set of problems revolved around the young teen son. I spotted their son climbing over a wall to get into my garden to get his football back, which at first I ignored it. Then, after it happened 10 times, I finally decided to speak with his parents, and I can't remember what I said entirely. Still, it was something like, "Hey, I just wanted to have a word as I've seen your son trespass 11 times to get his ball from my garden. I would appreciate it if you could get him to stop, as he is trespassing, and if he just came around to the front to knock on my front door and asked for his ball back, I would happily collect it for him." The neighbors apologized and said they'd make sure that their son didn't do it and knocked. Their son did it again a few days later while I was in my lounge. I walked into my garden, which made him jump, and spoke with him. I told him I'd seen him trespass to collect his ball on various occasions. I told him I had talked with his parents and that trespassing is a crime, and I would appreciate it if he could just come to the front and knock in the future. He didn't say anything and just went back into his garden. I informed his parents and they apologized, but it continued. I got fed up with it and decided to invest in CCTV. Finally, I wrote a letter to residents on my road to give them a week's notice that CCTV is being installed at my address, and it'll cover my entire garden, and it will also cover my doorway. I also wrote that I'm getting a Ring doorbell camera. After installing CCTV, I thought it would stop the kids from trespassing. It continued. I saved the footage, filed a police report against the son for trespassing, and sent all my evidence to the police. I knew there was a strong chance that nothing would happen, but I just wanted the son to have some responsibility. When my neighbors found out, they were angry as heck with me, and since then our relationship soured. My siblings found out about this and think I'm a total idiot for this. Am I the idiot? You are the idiot. How is this kid retrieving his ball from your yard hurting you? Also, you made a big deal out of telling them not to bother you because you work from home, but then you're telling them, but have your kid knock on my door to get his ball back. Your relationship with your neighbor soured because you're being needlessly petty and hard to live around, and you called the police on them because a child was retrieving a toy. Congrats. Low-income housing isn't a scheme. It keeps the lower-income people, usually families, from homelessness. Legally, you aren't an idiot, but as a neighbor, you are for sure. The kid sounds like he has a rough home life and is just getting his ball out of your garden. He doesn't probably talk to any adult in his life, much less a guy who keeps complaining about him to his parents. If he's not wrecking anything in your garden, you are the idiot for making his life harder. Yeah, Opie comes across to me as someone who wanted to live in Kensington, but couldn't afford it, and is now disgusted that she has to live with people with low incomes. If he knocked on your door every time he needed the ball back, you just complain about that too, since it would interrupt your work from home. It's a kid and his ball. Good lord, lady. 27 male, am engaged to Sky, 26 female, and we have our bridesmaids and groomsmen already chosen. My groomsman will be Sky's brother, Kai, a great friend of mine, and my best friend, Nick. Sky has her two closest friends as bridesmaids. I have a 24-year-old stepsister, with whom I'm not close, and Sky is maybe seen twice in our 7-year relationship. She's not in the wedding. She's just a regular guest. This bothered my dad's wife, and she offered us $3,000 toward the wedding to include her daughter. We turned her down. Sky left the decision to me, and I didn't even need to consider it. My dad and his wife are saying I'm unreasonable and I should accept the compromise because her daughter was 4 years old when I became her brother, and they know she feels hurt that she wasn't asked to be a bridesmaid. They said she'd be crushed on the day, seeing Sky's brother as my groomsman, and knowing she wasn't asked to be a bridesmaid as my only sibling. I told them Sky and Kai are close, and Kai's one of my closest friends. Sky's met my stepsister twice, and I never felt close to her. They said the money should have made an enormous difference, and offering that compromise was more than generous. Am I the idiot? Not the idiot. The wedding party is who the bride and groom feel most deserve the honor, and who they want standing with them. It was honestly lovely of the bride to leave the decision up to you, as it's her bridal attendance the stepsister would be part of. The decision has been made, and honestly, does your stepmother think her daughter would feel better knowing the only reason she's in the wedding is because you were bribed into including her? If this is how your stepmother approaches things, I understand why you aren't close to her. I can't imagine your parents really thinking this through. I'd be devastated to learn I was made a bridesmaid because my parents paid the couple getting married to include me. How could they not see how that's so much worse than being a regular guest? God, that would be so humiliating. I can't even imagine being in that situation. This is so wrong on so many levels. If that $3,000 was accepted, the stepmother would think she was running the wedding. Remind them that the stepsister doesn't need to come if it'll be too hard on her. It's not like being in the wedding is a day of game decisions. No amount of money changes the fact that it's your special day. My parents divorced when I was about 7 because my dad had admitted to having an affair. My mom and I moved out of our house and into an apartment, while my dad immediately moved his mistress into our house because she was pregnant with my twin brothers. My mom was devastated, but she quickly picked herself up for us. She returned to school, and as a result, she continued climbing up in her career. My mom adjusted better to going from a double-income household to a single income. She could contribute a substantial amount of money to my college fund. On the other hand, my dad had a harder time as he now had to support a family of 4, sometimes 5, on a single income, as his wife was a stay-at-home mom. My dad didn't have much disposable income, and so didn't contribute as much to the fund. I'll finish school soon and have a good chance of getting into my first college choice. Unfortunately, my brother, tween, was diagnosed with a kidney disease that has progressed to where he needs dialysis. My dad is drowning in medical debt, so my mom agreed he no longer needed to pay child support. The specialist suggested a different treatment for my brother, as most other treatments didn't help or stopped working, and they're running out of options, short of a transplant, not doable now. The treatment is not covered by insurance and costs a lot. My dad can't take out a loan due to debt. Dad and his wife sat me down when I was over and asked me if I would let them borrow my college fund to pay off my brother's treatment. They offered to pay the money back, but I knew they wouldn't be able to. I really don't want to give them the money because I know if I don't get any scholarships, I wouldn't be able to go to the college I want to without going into debt myself. My future would be at risk, and I know my dad wouldn't help if I needed it. In addition, the money technically belongs to my mom. I can't just give it away, and I know she would refuse to give them the money. My dad and his wife are furious at both my mom and me and are trying to guilt me into it. I do feel terrible for my little brother. Am I the idiot? Not the idiot. The money isn't yours, firstly. It was allocated by your mother for a specific thing. It was not meant to pay for her ex-husband's kids' treatments. They call it a loan, but it's not. It will never be repaid, and your mom will be out of thousands of dollars of her hard-earned money. And it was grossly inappropriate for your father to ask for your money. They need to come up with other sources, such as holding fundraisers, car washes, yard sales, GoFundMe, and barbecues do well in my area. Or a stepmom needs to work after dad is off work, so he can do childcare. Or a dad needs a second job. They can also look into government aid or medical studies where treatment would be covered. Tell your mom you shouldn't be put in this situation. OP, you have a lovely, understanding, and clear-eyed view of this. He'd never repay you, and you'd be stuck under college debt for 20 years. Ask your mom to be the bad guy. She can have her divorce attorney send a letter telling him the funds are hers to control, and she's not giving up years of her savings for him and his affair partner's expenses. She can also tell him that she'll take him to court to end his custody if he keeps trying to financially abuse a person your age. That's a bit of a feint since you could choose to go no contact at any point, but it might shock him out of his behavior. OP, you need more facts before you make any decision. First, all dialysis in the United States is paid for by Medicaid, even if someone is wealthy. A treatment not covered at all by insurance? That sounds kind of suspect. I would want to speak to the physicians directly. If you're adult enough to be expected to fund this treatment, you're adult enough to get the facts directly. I'm sorry for your sibling, but this is not your problem. This is a problem of your parents' making. Maybe this kid's mom ought to go get a job. Thank you. The twins are homeschooled due to their brother's compromised immune system, so dad's wife actually cannot get a full-time job, and she's also a full-time caretaker for my brother. I've spoken to my mom over the phone after this happened. She calmed me down and told me she would take care of it. I'm 20 and live with my 28-year-old sister. I've been living with her since I was 16. When I turned 18, she told me I'd have to start contributing to her rent and bills to continue living with her. I told her that if she wanted me to pay any bills in the house, I would no longer watch her two children, preschooler and toddler, for free, and she'd have to pay me for the child care. She works a 9 to 5, Monday through Friday, and I watch her kids for her while she's gone. I'm in university and take classes online, so it's easy to multitask. Plus, her 4-year-old is in preschool half-day, and I'm the one that picks her up and drops her off. Because of my contributions, I expect to be treated like a roommate in her apartment. I may not pay any rent, but that doesn't mean I'm not contributing to the household regarding childcare. She cannot afford daycare. The ones in our area charge around $2,000 for 2 children every month. She doesn't even pay that in rent. She still chastises me for certain things, like not paying for food or my phone bill. I also can barely have a social life or even a weekend job because I'm always expected to watch her kids so I can live with her rent-free, and she often uses that to her own advantage. And during weekends, doesn't come home at all. I'm sick of it and was ranting to a friend from school about it. She told me that one of her roommates was moving out at the end of this month to return to her home state after a horrible family tragedy. This roommate in particular had paid rent up front for the entire lease next 3 months, so she would be cool with having me in that room for free until the lease ends so I can get back on my feet and land a job that I can pay the rent for the new one. I couldn't pass up on this offer that I knew I would never get again, so I made the choice to move out. I wanted to tell my sister since it was her birthday weekend and I knew she had plans and wasn't planning to come home, and I was going to watch her kids for her as a final goodbye. She returned from her trip yesterday, and I finally set her down and told her I was moving out next week. She started crying, asking how I could do this to her. Knowing that she can't afford childcare and doesn't qualify for assistance, and that she'll have to come up with another form of childcare and must drive an hour to take her kids to our grandparents so that they can watch them, and that would be a huge inconvenience to her. And then she doesn't know if she can handle both the financial responsibilities of rent and daycare, and she'll probably have to move out, and I'm basically ruining her life that she let me live with her rent-free and that. I'm just now leaving her and her kids high and dry, and I'm a huge idiot. Not the idiot. You are watching her kids full time, which she knows how much that is. That's certainly not rent-free. How does she expect you to earn money to pay rent if you're already going to college and doing 40 hours of childcare? That doesn't even make sense. She'll figure it out. It sounds like it's time for you to move on. Being her 40-plus hours a week babysitter doesn't sound like much of a life. Not just the entire work week, but sometimes 24 to 7 on weekends. Sis is in for a rude awakening and she needs it. Meanwhile, you deserve a chance to live your life, work to pay your own bills, and finally enjoy having free time on your days off from work like anyone else, including your sister. She will have to drive the kids. Boo-hoo. Ask to the people complaining about your not giving notice. Notice is not the issue. The sister doesn't have the money. Sister could always stop wasting money with her regular outings and weekend vanishings too. Your sister had a deal others would die for. But as with the goose that laid the golden egg, she went and wrecked it out of greed. My wife, 40, and I, 38 male, have been married for 10 years and have 3 kids together, tween and younger. My wife also has a 19-year-old son from a previous relationship. My stepson and I have a pretty good relationship. His dad is and always has been present in his life. But my stepson currently lives with my wife and I. He dropped out of college after 1 semester due to mental health issues. He struggled with anxiety and depression for 3 to 4 years and was doing better before leaving for college. But I think being on his own for the first time triggered some setbacks. And he struggled a lot before deciding to come home. He works part-time but spends almost every other waking moment in his room. We worked with his dad ever since he started showing signs of mental illness. Therapy, counseling, working with doctors, multiple drug combinations, etc. For probably 18 to 24 months, pretty much all of our parental attention was focused on him and his issues because they were affecting everything and everyone in our family. When he was away at college, I finally felt like I could be a present and active father to my 3 other kids. I hate to put it this way, but I really felt like I was trying to make up for lost time. I also finally felt joy from parenting again, which hurts to say. But everything with my stepson was so stressful and progress was so slow. I was actually watching my kids grow up instead of missing out on everything. Now that my stepson is living at home with us again, I've tried really hard not to stray away from focusing my time and energy on my younger kids. I've tried to include my stepson in any outings or activities. But the few times he's decided to join us, it's been noticeably less enjoyable for everyone. I don't like saying it, but he can be a joy suck. He tends not to allow anyone else to enjoy something if he isn't. So, I pretty much stopped inviting him along to things. He and my wife have noticed, and my wife called me out on it recently. She told me that he feels left out and wants to be included more. I reminded her of how he behaves when he's out with the family and told her that unless he changes his behavior, I'm not going to allow him to ruin things for our younger kids. She told me that he needs a strong father figure to help him through these hard times. And I reminded her that he is a father who can fill that role, but he doesn't want to live with him because his dad would require him to work full-time and contribute to the household as an adult, something my wife doesn't want to do. I told her that I was through letting him suck all of the time away from our younger kids, and I would continue to prioritize them over him. I told her that I would never ask him to leave, but that he's legally an adult, and I have 3 young kids who require my time more than he does. She told me his dad would require him to work full-time and contribute to the household as an adult, something my wife doesn't want him to do. Holy cow, he should be with his bio dad. It sounds like structure and purpose will do a million times more than indulging him. Listen to what your therapist says, obviously, but I can't imagine they would disagree. Opie, you are not the idiot. Yeah, it seems like Dad and Opie are the only ones trying to do right by him. Opie's wife needs to let her kid become a functional adult, and the only way that happens is by doing what Bio Dad suggests, finding a stable job and contributing to the household. I'd imagine most therapists would also agree with that suggestion, unless the serious condition wouldn't allow him to work. This is a problem of your wife's making. She and her son must find a solution and stop expecting the world to revolve around him. Lots of people struggle with mental health, including me. Most of us find ways to cope and live our lives in a more or less productive manner. I have all the sympathy and patience for people who try, and admiration and respect for those who try, fail, and try again. I have none for those who refuse to try and those who enable them. My husband, myself, and our 2 sons visited sister-in-law for 4 nights. We do this once a year. We live in separate states, and usually other family members come as well. But this year, it's just us. I'm 32 weeks pregnant, so the travel was rough on me anyway. We drove because I can't fly, and it's a 21-hour drive. Well, sister-in-law had to work for 3 of the days that we were there. And on those days, she would come home at 4 p.m., look at me, and say, "So, what are you cooking tonight?" The first 2 times she said it, I just laughed it off, and so did she. So, I thought she was joking, but apparently she wasn't. We purchased food every time we came here as well. So, we spent $300 on food for our stay. And for context, the guys were out fishing and stuff, so they weren't home to cook. Or my husband absolutely would have. He loves grilling. The 3rd time she asked, I didn't say anything or laugh because it was getting old. What she then looked at me and said, "It's the least you can do considering I worked all day while you sat here doing nothing." This is utter BS because I was left at the house with her kids and my kids all day. Because this was a shift she picked up after we got here. And her husband and my husband had already left for the day before she took off for her random shift that she didn't tell anyone about. I tell her at this point that I'd taken care of 7 kids all day at 32 weeks pregnant when I'm supposed to be a guest in her home and shouldn't be made to do anything anyways. I made this comment because she asked me to do a load of her laundry and do up the dishes when she was at work. Which I did, no question. She just got irritated with me and walked off mumbling under her breath. So I took my kids and left to go get takeout for us and texted my husband giving him the rundown. He immediately returned home and played mediator but told his sister that she shouldn't have expected me to pick up house chores, babysit, and cook dinner when I was pregnant and a guest here. We left a day early, but people are saying I'm ridiculous because it wasn't a big deal and that I should have just cooked for the 11 people in the house because sister-in-law worked. Edit. The men fish every day we're here. When they get home and after we eat around 4 p.m. All the ladies take off and do whatever they want while the men stay home with the kids and have fires and esmores, movies, snacks, and bedtime around 10 to 11 depending on the activity that night. It's equally split. Also, I have 2 kids. She has 5. I don't need to slow down on having kids because 7 for one person is too much. Sister-in-law picked up these shifts. She was supposed to have the entire 4 days off. She never ran it by anyone until after the guys had already left for the day. And generally speaking, the guys don't have service where they go fishing. So, I had already cooked for 8 people, all the kids and myself twice during those 3 days, and did laundry and dishes more than enough for a guest invited to your home under the false pretense of a vacation. The rest of the family, mother-in-law and my other sister-in-law, were supposed to attend, but mother-in-law fell ill with a nasty sinus cold and stayed home. And my other sister-in-law tended to her. We make this trip every year, and I generally enjoy coming here. So, I decided to come down this way. My kids love seeing their cousins, and my brother-in-law is my husband's best friend. So, I didn't want to damper the mood just because I'm pregnant. You had my not the idiot and drove 21 hours to babysit 7 kids while pregnant. Helping out when you're a guest is reasonable. Being the housekeeper/nanny when you're a guest isn't reasonable. Maybe sister-in-law needs help in the house or an escape and saw you as her solution. Doesn't matter. She didn't ask and you didn't offer. LOL to the people saying you're ridiculous, and it wasn't a big deal. Excuse me? Sister-in-law was a huge idiot. It's also extremely rude to pick up extra work shifts while you have a guest visiting who drove 21 hours to visit and expect them to babysit their kids plus cook and clean. What kind of BS is that? Also, to only reveal that she's leaving after the men have left for the day and the belief that the vacation is going to plan and their wives are looking after the kids together is a spiteful move. Honestly, I take this as a sign that she isn't really happy about hosting you, to be honest. For future visits, stay somewhere else and coordinate the things you do together. You are the idiot, but especially the 2 husbands, and you don't have to make excuses for 2 grown men who are fathers. S'mores and movies aren't wrangling. It's fun, especially compared to laundry and real cooking with cleanup involved. Why did you guys decide to make this trip at this time? Sounds like a really bad idea in the first place. Your sister-in-law is not a big fan of this yearly tradition, having your family, your mother-in-law and your additional sister-in-law stay at your house for a week, and chose not to work to have some time for herself. I'm more sympathetic to your sister-in-law here. She's not getting any vacation at all, and you're putting all the blame on her. My 23 male parents, 43 male and 45 female, divorced when I was 8. I stayed with my dad full-time and visited my mom 2 weekends a month. My dad stayed single for all my childhood and adolescence. I met Josh, 34 male, 1.5 years ago because he was my boss at the company I started working half-time for while finishing college, same field. Josh and I started getting along so well and hanging out. I even met his wife, Mary, 30, a couple of times. Well, for my 22nd birthday, I decided to throw a party and invite Josh and Mary to come. My dad was there too, of course, and I introduced them to him. They shook hands, shared some info, and that was it. That was their whole interaction during my birthday party. Like 2 weeks later, Josh came to me saying that my dad was amazing and a fun dude, and then let me know that he and his wife, had some beers with him. From that point, they became best friends. My dad would constantly go to their house on weekends to have some grill or whatever. They also invited me, but I never went. 3 months ago, Josh told me that my dad was an idiot and a homewrecker who seduced his wife to cheat on him and got her pregnant. I called my dad to know what was going on, and he told me that Mary left Josh to be with my dad because they had an affair and she was pregnant, and also told me that they loved each other. I found out that they'd been having an affair for a year almost immediately after they met for the first time. They planned to get married after the twin babies, boy and girl, are born and Mary's divorce is finalized. Not going to lie, I feel guilty because if I hadn't invited Mary and Josh, they would have never met my dad and this wouldn't have happened. But I can't look at my dad the same way I did. He went after a married woman who had a tween son. I know he's a great dad to me and I love him very much, and I know he'll be a great stepdad and dad to these new children, but I just can't look at him the same way I did. So I still talk to him, but I try to keep my distance as much as possible. He invited me to their baby shower, but I said I couldn't go because I didn't feel comfortable. He asked me why, so I said, Dad, to be honest, I can't look at you the same way. You went after a married woman with a child. You got her pregnant and now want to act as if nothing has happened. He told me this doesn't affect me in any way and that his love life shouldn't be my problem, but I had to quit the job since Josh had become insufferable. My mom and friends say that I should support my dad because I don't know what Josh's and Mary's relationship was like, which is true, I don't. But I can't help but feel guilty and sorry for Josh. Not the idiot. He slept with your boss's wife and you quit your job because your boss blamed you. He can't pull the "it's none of your business" card when he aimed his adultery at your career. The audacity. I hate to break it to you, but great dads don't sleep with the spouse of their child's boss. Great dads don't intentionally nuke a young boy's family. Great dads don't try to rug sweep their own atrocious behavior. Unfortunately, he has not been a great dad as of late. Boy, your mom and her friends are wrong. It doesn't matter what Josh and Mary's marriage was like. What matters is that your dad slept with a married woman, got her pregnant, caused a family to crumble, and screwed you out of a job. It probably would have happened with someone else. Their marriage was not that solid if she was so quickly able to cheat. No one can steal someone else's spouse. A spouse is a person, not an object. They have free will. They're the ones cheating. This Mary is wholly responsible for her own situation. She could have said no at any time. Of course, she chose to cheat. But Opie's father played the best friend card with Opie's boss to get closer to his wife. It is a far more idiotic move, seducing a married woman when you know her husband. Especially when the husband is your son's boss and he's the one who introduced you. I understand why Opie has lost respect for his father. If I were in your shoes, I would never have anything to do with my dad again. That is an awkward position to put you in. And it's not fair to you that he used your birthday party to pick up on another man's wife. I, female 32, have a friend who we'll call Ellie, female 32. I've known Ellie since we were around 7. Our mothers are good friends. Ellie has had a very, very privileged life. Her dad is a lawyer, and her mom is a dentist. So, as you can imagine, Ellie had many more luxuries and opportunities than your average person. She grew up attending private schools, having private tutors, going on fancy vacations every year, etc. I won't go into too much detail, but I didn't have a life like Ellie's. Ellie never had to get a job until she went into residency in medical school when she was 26. When we finished high school at 18, Ellie initially went to business school for 2 years before dropping out, then pursuing medical school. Her parents paid her tuition and living expenses, so Ellie never struggled financially and never had to worry about money. Plus, her mother got Ellie volunteering opportunities so she could get references on her medical school applications. Ellie is now a qualified pediatrician. I'm glad she was able to find a career path she enjoys, and I'm proud of her for finishing school. I know medical school is no walk in the park. I'm a veterinarian. A few weeks ago, we went to a town event, and we bumped into some of my old friends from high school. We chatted for a few minutes, and one of them proudly mentioned she had finished nursing school. When we went to my house afterward, Ellie made a very rude comment about my old friend, saying I bet she was just too dumb to go to medical school, and went on about how great she is. I told Ellie that what she said was rude and uncalled for. Ellie said it was the truth. I snapped and told Ellie, "You only became a doctor by getting handouts. You don't get to make comments about other people." Ellie started yelling at me and telling her that I was a jerk for undermining her hard work, and that she still had to work for where she was now. I told her that I knew she still had to work hard, but most people don't have parents who can pay all their tuition and living expenses, and she had it easier. Ellie called me a jerk again and said that I was ignorant and that she still had to work hard. Not the idiot. Many people aren't intelligent enough for medical school, but can only dream of becoming doctors due to classes barriers in place. Many medical schools have rules against students having jobs during their studies. Ellie sounds naive and sheltered. Her comment was insulting and unnecessary. Nurses are essential for medical establishments to function. Ellie's looking down on a profession that medical facilities need to work. She makes doctors look bad. Unfortunately, when it comes to higher education, intelligence and hard work frequently aren't enough. So, her comment isn't even true. Ellie had to work hard at medical school. Ellie did not have to work hard in life. Ain't when people don't acknowledge their privilege. Her comment was very nasty and uncalled for. So, good on you for calling her out. I keep getting into an argument with my wife, and it keeps getting worse. We are due to have our first child, our first together. She has 3 older children that live with us later this month. I bought tickets for a concert approximately 3 weeks after her delivery date, if we make it that far. And she keeps accusing me of not caring for wanting to go to it, saying she can't believe I care more about a concert than our daughter. And how could I want to leave her? I told her that one night out shouldn't be that big of a deal. I'm already using 6 weeks of paid time off I've accumulated at my job to be there when the baby's born, to be around full time. And one night away for a few hours shouldn't be that big of a deal. To be fair, there are also a few football games my family has season tickets to that I said I'd still like to go to, but not all of them. But getting away for a while would probably be good to refocus with the stress of a new baby. In that same vein, I've kept telling her that I can take care of the baby, so she can get out from time to time if it's an hour or an afternoon. And before this became a problem, I also bought her tickets for a concert about 2 weeks after the one I'm going to. So about 5 weeks after delivery, where I purchased her sit-down seats to attend because it's one of her favorite artists. I told her I'd take care of the baby for the night and she could go with her mom and enjoy the concert. But instead she says she won't be going because she couldn't leave the baby and doesn't understand how I'm just okay leaving the baby for an evening. Am I an idiot and unreasonable for wanting some planned time away to recoup? Oh dear, are you serious? You are the idiot because your plan for each of you to go to concerts right after your baby is due is dangerous, not just ignorant. You do know that your newborn can't be vaccinated, right? So for the first 2 months, your newborn baby is especially vulnerable. You may not know, but recovering from childbirth takes weeks to months. Childbirth is a major medical event. Do you care about your baby or your wife? Budhi, no. You think you'll need a break 3 weeks after she gives birth, but she doesn't get one. Unless you have support lined up for her while you take the night off. Unquestionably, 100% you are the idiot. She'll need you home. You have no idea what life will be like 3 weeks postpartum. My oldest was still in NICU, which was completely unexpected. I would have divorced my ex-husband sooner if he'd gone away during that time. You're making many plans when you have no idea what your life will look like after the baby's here. I feel so bad for your wife. Paternity and maternity leave is not vacation time. To start with, I worked for a salary as soon as it was legal for me to do so in the UK. I reached a point in my life and career where after bills and savings, I can afford stuff like designer jewelry, bags, shoes, etc. That hasn't always been the case. My family's Asian, and since they got married, my parents have fully supported my dad's family and given financial help to my mom's parents when they needed it. It wasn't unusual for my parents to take me shopping every 3 to 4 months to buy new clothes for my cousins while I got hand-me-downs or secondhand clothes from charity shops and car boot sales. Even when I started earning money, I would have to put it into my parents' account and only get back 10 to 20 pounds a week. Meanwhile, my cousins could ask for new phones, styling products, bikes, etc., and it would be bought for them. So, while as a household, we were probably making enough income to count as middle class, we were ourselves living frugally. This continued well into when I began uni. Around that time, however, my uncle's wife started making comments about my parents paying for their kids' university fees, weddings, and them inheriting the house they lived in, which is jointly owned by my parents and has been willed to me. That was the wake-up call they needed to realize that they were going beyond just helping out their family in need, but were actually funding their lifestyle while effectively depriving themselves. After I paid off my student loans and had enough saved for a deposit on a property, I realized I had enough to treat myself, so I started to buy some of the mentioned designer goods. I guess my cousin saw stuff on my IG and started messaging me, along with their mother, to harass me, saying that they had been forced to get jobs while I'm just splashing my cash on things I don't need. I can indeed send them money, but I want to have nice things for myself for once. Does that make me the idiot? Not the idiot. You might want to pass all these messages to your parents, with the caption, "Now they want me to send them all my money too." They are parasites. Tell your cousin you also had to get a job to afford the things you bought. If they want designer crap, they can earn it just like you did. Cut off these leeches. They will not stop drinking your blood on their own. Get your tiny violin and play them the saddest song you know. Opie, this is survivor's guilt. You are absolutely not responsible for what money they have available to them. You've done well for yourself through hard work and prudent savings. It would be best if you work through any guilt you might have. Enjoy the life you've made for yourself, and you deserve it, not the moochers. Maybe you should treat your parents to some nice things, since they also didn't get the chance to enjoy luxuries. I'm not saying you have to, but it would be nice, since they were being taken advantage of for so long. No, don't treat your parents to anything. They deprived you, their child, so that your cousins could live it up. Honestly, this is insane. Providing the extended family with brand new clothes, while their kids get secondhand stuff and hand-me-downs. Confiscating that kid's earnings to give to extended family? I'm on board with the notion that family helps family, and that relatives step up to provide a safety net in extraordinary circumstances. However, in this case, Opie's relatives don't want a safety net, they want a hammock. My 56th female, youngest son, 30, recently married his wife, 29. We live in different states and usually only see each other for holidays, etc. Our son's elder brother, 33, was recently diagnosed with autism. While our younger son, and now wife, daughter-in-law were still dating, he brought her home to us so we could meet her. She's always been a little off. She's shy and awkward and prefers doing stuff on a computer to being outdoors. My husband and I are very outdoorsy and live a very active life, so I guess we clashed a bit there. She's always been nice, and in the beginning, she participated in many of our activities, even if she wasn't great at them. After his diagnosis, she comforted our elder son, which was a hard blow for all of us. She said she also felt awkward and weird at times, and that it was okay to be different. I suspected maybe she meant this as a way of telling us that she was on the spectrum too. About 2 years ago, they had their first kid. They had some issues conceiving and lost a baby before having their daughter. She's a great kid, and we love her so much. However, since their daughter was born, my daughter-in-law's become even more awkward around us. We invited them over to celebrate the 4th of July. Daughter-in-law was tired and didn't participate in any outdoor activities, but instead insisted on working on the computer, while our son was the one playing with his daughter outdoors. I asked her what was she doing in front of the screen all the time, and she told me she was just catching up on work. This just seemed off to me, because why wouldn't she want to play outside with her husband and kid? So, my husband and I spoke privately about our worries that she's not participating in her daughter's childhood and leaving it all to her husband. We both agreed that we should talk to her about it. After dinner, yes, drinks were involved. I went away to do the dishes and heard raised voices. When I returned to the table, daughter-in-law was crying as my husband told her off quite sharply. He said some things that might have been a bit harsh, but nothing untrue. She stormed off, crying instead of discussing the issue further. I followed her to try and discuss the situation and told her we were just worried about her, them as a couple, and their daughter. This was when I told her I thought she should seek help or counseling for autism, as I figured that was why she was struggling with motherhood. She was highly offended and told me that she was not autistic, but suffering from PPD. They packed their bags and left in a hurry. Later, we saw that she had unfriended my husband and me on Facebook and blocked us from messaging her. They haven't spoken a word to us since. Our son is apparently furious, according to his brother. We can't reach out to explain our side of things now that we're both blocked. Both of us meant well, and it came from a place of worry for our grandchild. Am I the idiot? Let me drop a bug in your ear. This woman finds you and your husband just about as obnoxious as the rest of us on this thread. She forces herself to attend family functions so her husband can see his parents, and you and your husband can spend time with your grandchild. That's why she gets on her computer and works, to spare herself the unpleasantness of spending time with you. I'll read between the lines. Your husband had a few drinks and decided to harass your daughter-in-law. You didn't mind because you agreed with what he said. I don't think your son will give your husband another chance to play tipsy narc with her, or you another opportunity to go right behind him, tearing her down some more. Good for them. You are the idiot in every conceivable way. Your son and daughter-in-law have gone no contact. No contact means just that, no contact. You're a busybody, and your husband made your son's wife cry. Actions have consequences. Your actions cut you off from your son and grandchild. How are you surprised that this is the outcome? Good luck with never seeing